Women have a delusion when they go on dating apps and they left swipe on 600 men, and in their mind they think I'm better than these men and I could get all of these men or some of these men or most of these men to commit to me in a long-term relationship, not recognizing that this app is only for short-term sexual access.
I'm currently dating, and I get a lot of questions about how I date. I don't know how to answer that because the overview of dating has changed so much, especially when it comes to modern dating. And you have a couple of things you'd like to talk about when it comes to modern dating. How would you define modern dating, and why are there so many complications around it?
Yeah. So when you think about our existence as humans, right, about the way I like to describe it, it's 178 million years of mammalian evolution, 3 million years of hominid evolution, and then 200,000 years of Homo sapien evolution, and then like 15 years of Facebook. And we're confused because Facebook is so recent. We're confused by things, technology we see in modernity, and we think that those things have been around forever, but they're not. And so what's happened is there's an anthropologist named Dunbar, and he came up with this thing called Dunbar's number. And this concept is, once you get past 150 people, you stop losing. You don't have room in your head for more than 150 people. And that's about how big, if you take notice, that's how big ancestral tribes are. And that's how big military units currently are today, is about 150 people. So what's happened is you're set up to be born, go through puberty, like go through adolescence, go through puberty, young adulthood, then find someone who's around your same age. There's maybe 8 to 10 people in that age group that you're possibly able to. This is, by the way, this is the reason why men have approach anxiety when they come up to talk to strange women. Is because there was only maybe 8 to 10 women in your tribe that you had the ability to go talk to. And if you screwed up with one of them, you were going to die a virgin. We look at the chromosomes or the chromosomal records for men and women, and we find out about 40% of men have procreated throughout history and 80% of women. There's a lot of men, probably more than half of men who've ever been born died virgins. So when you realize that, it's like, okay, that's where the approach anxiety comes from. So now just think about everything I said. And now let's take these same Homo sapiens who haven't really developed that much, and then let's give them access to infinite numbers of men and women that they can look at on social media. So now we have certain studies that show women will left swipe 600 times for every one time they right swipe to go on a date with a guy. Women will do something like 16,000 swipes to go on 10 dates. There's one TikTok video of a gentleman. He did 1 million with an M, million right swipes, and went on 2 dates. That was it, from million. And he was an average looking guy. And then you see these women, they'll go on there and they'll say things like, well, you know, I think Ryan Gosling is mid. I think he's average, right? You'll see stuff like that. So when you go on these dating sites and you actually survey the women on there, they report 80% of men on these sites to be below average attractiveness. Well, mathematically, that's kind of hard to do. 20% of these men, they say these 20% of men are attractive. And then the top 4.5% of men are so attractive that women pursue. When you go look at the right swipe counters, you'll see the top 10% of men get 63% of the right swipes. That's almost one standard deviation of women that go to 10% of men. The top 20% of men get 83% of the right swipes. And this is the crazy one. The top 40% of men get 96% of the right swipes, which means the bottom 60% of men are competing for 4% of women on dating apps. And so when you see that, what's happened is men have become delusional because, and I know a lot of people get offended when I use this word, but men have become delusional when it comes to these non-contextualized images they see in pornography that have caused men to believe that women act that way and look that way. And unless you live in Las Vegas, they don't look that way. And so they get to the point where they start believing that they can get women that they don't possibly have a chance with. This is when you see the supermodel who gets the pics from the hundreds of guys, stuff like that. Just utter and complete nonsense. So the guy who's sneaking in your DMs, I want to see Bob's and vagine, that kind of stuff. Where do those tropes come from? They come from men shooting their shot. Men have what's called an overperception bias, according to Dr. David Buss. He's an evolutionary psychologist. Women, they have a delusion. And again, I know this word is offensive to a lot of people, but women have a delusion when they go on dating apps and they left swipe on 600 men. And in their mind, they think I'm better than these men and I could get all of these men or some of these men or most of these men to commit to me in a long-term relationship, not recognizing that this app is only for short-term sexual access. And so the problem is, and not to say certainly some people get into long-term relationships from Tinder, Bumble, and Hinge, but for the most part, what we see with Tinder, Bumble, Hinge, Raya, eHarmony, and OkCupid is we see a lot of guys in there really looking for short-term sexual access. And in almost all of those apps, we see 3 to 6 times as many men as women. In India, it's like 11 men for every woman, something like that. And by the way, you know, when you pay for those boosts on Tinder, Bumble, and Hinge, it's 9 guys for every 1 girl. And so it's just one of these situations where we've got to the point where women believe because they fucked a 10 that they can get a 9 to commit, right? They had sex with one time, they had sex with a movie star. They had sex with like somebody, celebrity at a party or whatever. And so they believe that they can get this guy who's like the super hot bartender in their city to commit to them. And they can't, because they don't understand the concept between short-term dating and long-term dating. And then there's men who are delusional because they keep looking at non-contextualized images of women in bikinis on Instagram, and because they keep looking at pornography. And then you end up with guys under the age of 21 with erectile dysfunction. So what's happened, the short and to the point answer, what you're saying is it's an evolutionary mismatch. We were not designed biologically for the current environment that we're in. We have what's called the dilemma of perceived choice, or the perceived dilemma of choice, because we don't really have as many choices as we think we do.
And it's interesting because I was just talking to a bunch of my girlfriends, like how the shift in dating has certainly occurred. I feel it over the last 3 or 4 years. It's just different. I miss being courted. And now these days, being courted doesn't exist. A guy will like my Instagram story. I will see him in person and he'll say, well, like you knew I was checking you out. I liked your story. I'm like, that's the standard now. Why aren't men courting anymore? And why are they just like assuming that you can like a tweet, like an Instagram story, and then boom, this is going to start, or anything?
It's so great. Yeah. So there's two reasons here. Number one, you don't want men to court you. You want men who are attractive to you to court you. Right. You don't want, like, most women say, this is very confusing to men. And I ask any of the ladies who are watching this, if you could just change your language a little bit. You don't want a man to buy you flowers. You want a man you're attracted to buy you flowers. You don't want a man to be vulnerable to you. You want a man you're attracted to be vulnerable to you. When women leave out that little bit of context, what happens is you start getting these weird approaches from men that you're not attracted to. And then the men that you are attracted to, unfortunately, in this situation, remember I said the top 20% of men are getting 83% of the right swipes on dating apps. Those men that you are attracted to, they get so much attention from other women, one. And two, the other issue is this. One of the biggest things for men that they have a problem with, like if you ask most men, it's like, would you wait for the second, third, fourth, fifth date to have sex with a girl? Most guys would say yes, but they wouldn't say yes if the previous guy she dated had sex with her on the first date. And so there's a lot of guys out there that are getting to this point where, like, okay, I'm courting her, but she Brock the bartender last week that she just met. We don't, like, that's not something that's feasible. Maybe you want to call it jealousy or immaturity, or more properly, an evolutionary adaptation. Well, that's something that happens. And so because men are afraid of that concept, that's why they don't court. So what's the least perceived effort I can show to show you interest so that maybe we can hook up? A like, a comment, send you a meme. What I found is the happy medium, Jessica, that's absolutely the best. Charity events, going to like group activities together, a big group of you going to the fair together, like big group events with an entire social circle of people. I found those to be much better. That way, if the girl doesn't like the guy, she can just like peel off. It's not that big of a deal. And if it doesn't work out, we're still having fun because we're at the fair, we're at an animal rescue charity, something like that. I found that like the first date concept is a little bit difficult because, like you said, men are afraid of being taken advantage of. That's because, and it's not your fault, Jessica, because I don't think you're taking advantage of anyone, but some women out there are. There's several women who report going on dating websites and say they're not there to date. They're there because they want attention. And so when you do that and you receive that over and over again, as a man, you get to the point where you get a little bit jaded and it becomes very difficult to court. My girlfriend, it was a unique situation. We met at I was hosting a bikini pageant in Mexico. She was one of the finalists. And then I just I was just very direct. I was like, hey, listen, we're going to see each other or not. It's what's up to you. But I've made up my mind. You're the girl I like. And so we ended up doing that, and I ended up flying her out to Vegas, and then she ended up moving out here with me. But that was a situation where if I had given her that attention and she had not responded by giving me attention in kind, I would have just dropped off. I wouldn't have continued to try to go after her. And so that's something that's happened is like, again, the perceived dilemma of choice, because people think that they have more options than they actually do. Then it causes people to not want to do things like court or wait or be patient in these type of situations. And as soon as they see something better, oh man, these artificial intelligent AI enhanced images of women now, they're making things even worse. They're making things even worse. You have AI influencers on OnlyFans making hundreds of thousands of dollars a month. It makes things only worse, right? Men paying women for non-contextualized images of their of sexuality on OnlyFans. It just what it does is just digs the hole deeper for these men. They have no ability to communicate with the opposite sex. They end up with these weird erectile dysfunctions. All this kind of stuff happens. And so that's the situation that we're in now, right?